I'm now going to come back to the light box that we created earlier. This is for a record company called Quadrant Recordings, and I'm going to show you how to actually machine this, and we're also going to create an inlay for the light box. So what I'm going to do first of all is to import an image into the bitmap layer. So I'll right click and select import, and I'm going to select here, which is the Quadrant logo, and I'll open that, and it will open up quite large. I'm going to do bitmap to vector. Make sure my default layer is selected, and I'm going to reduce the colours. I can also reduce the colours here. We have an icon there, or I could right click here and it will allow me to reduce the colours. I'll just move this down to 2 colours, so it's black and white. I'll change the speckle size to 5, and I'll create the vectors. I'll just turn off the visibility of the bitmap layers. There we have the Quadrant Recordings logo. Just going to make this visible just for the time being, just so I can see it. Select all of the vectors, and I'm going to transform these vectors, and I'm just going to change the width and the height of these. I'll unlink this so it's not in perspective, and I'm going to change them to a specific size, which is 250 by 150, and then apply that, and just close this. I'll turn the other layers back on now. Just select the light bulb. As you can see, at the moment we're going to be cutting this out from the back because we have the fold lines here, so that's going to be the back. At the moment, this Quadrant Recordings, if we were to cut that out like so, it would actually be the wrong way around when we turn the light box over. So what we need to do is to mirror this Quadrant Recordings logo. So I won't copy the original vectors, and I'll just do it horizontal center, so that's just mirrored that through the center. So there we have the Quadrant Recordings light box ready to machine now. So I'm going to select toolpaths, and I'm going to do a 2D profile toolpath. I'm not going to select any vectors with this. As I said before, because I've got the vector pack installed, I can use the vector layers to choose what I want to cut. So instead of selecting vectors, I'm going to come down to grooves, and the finished depth is going to be 2mm, and the material thickness is 3mm, so this just creates a groove so it can be folded, as this is going to be made from die bond. So I'll select the profiling tool, and I'm going to select a 3mm ball nose. I'm going to use aluminium. Go to ball nose, select that, and I need to also make sure that I am selecting along as the profile because I want to go along these grooves. So I'll click create now, and there you can see it's created a toolpath along these grooves. So I'll just close that now, open up my toolpath tree, and now I'm going to create an inlay toolpath. So I'm going to select inlay. I'm going to create a female hole. So I'll select that there. Instead of selecting vectors, I'm going to use the default layer, which is where my Quadrant Recordings logo is. And the finished depth, this is going to be 3mm, so it cuts pieces out. The tool, I'll select a 1mm ML for this. This is because I don't want to have any large rads in the corners, and I'll select that. I'm not going to include any allowance on this. I'm going to do this in the next part when I create the insert. So this is just going to be cut out to size. So I'll just click calculate now, and there you can see it's created the toolpaths for that. With the recordings cut out, on the G, on the B, O and the E, they all have small inside islands. What will happen here is that these will be cut out and they will probably fly out of the machine unless they are held down properly. This is one good reason to have the advanced profiling module upgrade, because if I click the female inlay, the 1mm ML, I can select here, which is profile options, and you can create bridges with this. I'll create a bridge length of 3 and a bridge thickness of 0.5. What this does, it creates a tab between each part, and this will allow it to stay within the material, and then you can just break it out afterwards and just trim up the edge. This will save you having to create separate parts for these particular pieces. So I'll just click one bridge and select create bridges. If I just zoom in here on the R, as you can see, here's a bridge, and what I can do is just click on it and just drag that round. I'll just drag this round to here. I can also just drag these round. What I'm going to do is just drag that round so it creates a bridge between the loose piece of the E, and I'll just move this round here. I'll move the C round to this edge here. It's best to have these bridges on straight faces. This is just so you can clean it up easier afterwards, as you can't get in there to file off the pieces afterwards. It's best to do it on a straight edge. So I'll just move these round, and as you can see here on the G, I have a bridge there, but because I've just selected one on each entity, and I need two just to keep the two bits in the material. So I'll just double click here, and that will create a new bridge there. So I'll just leave that like so, and I'll just close that, and that's created bridges for me just to keep the parts of this logo in the material. So I'll just minimize that. Now I'm going to drill the holes out for the rivets. So I'll click toolpaths and select create drilling toolpath, and I'll just move this over to here. Instead of selected vectors, I'm going to go onto the holes layer, and the finish depth is right the way through the material, so it's 3mm. Select the tool, it's going to be a 3mm end-mill, as these are 3mm diameter, and I'll click calculate now. That's created a toolpath to drill the holes. Finally, I'm going to do a 2D profile on the outside just to cut the piece out. So I'll select profile and selected vectors. I want to use the light box, so it uses that layer to cut out. Finish depth of 3mm. The profiling tool, I'm just going to use the same 3mm end mill. I'm going to change the step down on this to 3mm, so it just cuts it straight the way out. Calculate now. So I'll just right click here, simulate all toolpaths, and there you can see that's our light box ready to be cut out and then folded up. So now I'm going to show you how to create the inlay for the light box. So I'm going to go to File and Open, and I'm just going to open the image straight from the menu. I'm not going to save the changes, and this will open up the image straight into my bitmap layer. Set the origin as the center, and I'm going to change the width of this to 500mm, as it's a little bit high at the moment, and then just OK that. Go straight onto my bitmaps vectors tool, reduce the colours down to 2, and then OK that. The speckle size needs to be the same as the previous one, just so there's no inconsistencies, and then create the vector, and then close that. Turn off my bitmap, and I'm going to transform these vectors. So I need to unlink the width and the height, and it's going to be 250mm by 150mm, and then apply that. So that's the right size now. Just zoom in a little bit here, and now I'm going to offset the vectors. This is just to allow some clearance, just so the insert fits into the inlay within the light box. So I'm going to go inwards by 0.1mm, and I want to delete the original vectors. So that's offset inwards by 0.1, so I have 0.1 clearance around all of the vectors. So now I'm going to create a rectangle around this, and the width of this is going to be 290 by 190. This is just so it fits within the light box, and I'll accept that. Press F9 just to center it, and then just zoom out a little bit. Now I'm going to do some machining on this part. That's all that needs to be done as regards to the vectors. So I'll click toolpaths, and this time I'm going to create an area clearance toolpath. I'll just move this over to here so it tabs with that. And I'm going to do it under selected vectors. Press Ctrl A just to select all the vectors. The finish depth, this is going to be 3mm deep, and the material is actually going to be 5mm thick. And I'll set the model position on top and the Z0 on top, and I'm going to add some tools now. I'll close my aluminium tools because this is going to be made from plastic, and I'll open that drop down. I'm going to use a 12mm mill with a step down of 3mm, and I'm going to use a 3mm mill with a step down of 1.5, and I'm going to use a 1mm mill, which needs to be the same as the inlay that I created previously, and that's also going to be 1.5 step down. Click calculate now. That's given me an area clearance. If I just zoom in on the toolpath, here you can see that's the 12mm cut there, then it's doing a leftover cut for the 3mm, and then it's just getting in the tiny gaps that the 3mm couldn't get in using the 1mm cutter. So this is just to blast away a lot of material. Finally, I'm just going to do a profile along the outside, and I'm going to use the same 12mm mill for this, and selected vectors, finish depth of 5mm, which is the material thickness. So I'll select my 12mm mill, and this should cut right away through, and there we have that there. So that's the toolpaths complete for the insert. So I'll just right click here and simulate all toolpaths, and if I just zoom in here, that's the roughing, that's the 3mm, then the 1mm, and then the cut on the outside. So there we have the insert ready to fit into our Quadrant Recordings Lightbox. Finally, I'm just going to show you how to actually save these toolpaths so you can send these to your machine. So if I click here, Save Toolpaths, and here you can see, I'll just move this one back over here. That was the final toolpath. Here we have all the toolpaths that I've created, and I can just select one or all of them and just move them over into here, and then just select the machine that I have. Let's say I have Axis metric machine, and then just click save. Just save them to the desktop. Just save it as one. Can close that. And if I just switch to the desktop and look here, then you can see my NC code for that particular toolpath. I can just do the same thing if I have a tool changer, so I could just select, say, a few of the toolpaths. I need to make sure that I change the tool number and it coincides with my machine, and then just change multi-tool and then just save it in exactly the same way. Thanks for watching, bye.